राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे 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 श्री राधे अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। यद्यपि यह सच है नहीं तुम कहा, यद्यपि यह सच है नहीं तुम कहा। भूख प्यास लागती रसिया, भूख प्यास लागती रसिया, भूख प्यास लागती रसिया, भूख प्यास लागती रसिया। तदपि भाववश ब्रज छछिया लगी, चोरी करत फिर्यो रसिया। तदपि भाववश ब्रज छछिया लगी, चोरी करत फिर्यो रसिया। भाव भरा केले का छिलका, भाव भरा केले का छिलका, विदुरानी घर खायो रसिया, विदुरानी घर खायो रसिया, विदुरानी घर खायो रसिया, विदुरानी घर खायो रसिया। भावहीन दुर्योधन व्यंजन, नहीं टुक मन भायो रसिया। भावहीन दुर्योधन व्यंजन, नहीं टुक मन भायो रसिया, नहीं टुक मन भायो रसिया, नहीं टुक मन भायो रसिया। जो रस शबरी के झूठे मुख, जो रस शबरी के झूठे मुख, बेर खाय पायो रसिया, बेर खाय पायो रसिया, बेर खाय पायो रसिया, बेर खाय पायो रसिया। जनकपुरी के राज भोग महा, सुरस नहीं पायो रसिया, जनकपुरी के राज भोग महा, सोरस नहीं पायो रसिया, सोरस नहीं पायो रसिया, सोरस नहीं पायो रसिया। अब न और तर सौरसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। अब न और तर सौरसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया। अब न और तरसो रसिया, अब न और तरसो रसिया। हो मानत हो भावहीन हो, मानत हो भावहीन हो, भावहीन हो, भावहीन हो, मानत हो भावहीन हो, मानत हो भावहीन हो। पै सुन खर खरी खरी रसिया,
सुनो खरी खरी रसिया।
कत कृपाल पय पियो पूत नहीं, याते अब आ जाओ रसिया।
कत कृपालु पयो पियो पूत नहीं, याते अब आ जाओ रसिया।
कत कृपालु पय पियो पूत नहीं, याते अब आ जाओ रसिया।
कत कृपालु पय पियो पूत नहीं, याते अब आ जाओ रसिया।
याते अब आ जाओ रसिया,
याते अब आ जाओ रसिया।
रसिया ओ रसिया,
मेरे मन बसिया।
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 रसिया ओ रसिया।
मेरे मन बसिया।
आओ 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 भोग लगाओ रसिया,
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
अब ना और तरसाओ रसिया, आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
आओ 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 भोग लगाओ रसिया,
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
आओ आओ भोग लगाओ रसिया।
बोलिए शांत्या की, श्रीमत सद्गुरु सरकार की। अभी आरती नहीं होगी, अभी मैं प्रवचन दूंगी छोटा सा, उसके बाद आरती होगी। बैठ जाइए यदि आप बैठ सकते। अच्छा, पता नहीं, योगा 7:30 बजे होगा शायद, 7:30 बजे। राधे राधे। Respected devotees, over the past 2 days, elaborating on the importance of the divine name of God, the significance of the divine name of God, I explained that chanting the divine names of God, chanting their divine glories, their divine pastimes, is the only hope, the only refuge for souls of this age of Kali. Chanting of the divine names and the virtues and the attributes, loving remembrance of the divine pastimes and the leelas of God are the only means of divine love realization in this age. This has been described by all the scriptures, and the saints, they unanimously declare that the divine name of God is the only sadhana that one has to adapt, that one has to embrace in a given lifetime. In this lifetime, in this age of Kali, in order to realize God's divine vision, God's divine love. Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj, my Gurudev, he has revealed in the Radha Govind Geet, Kali Sama Yuga Nahi Govind Radhe Hari Naam Hari Dhyan Hari Se Mila De. That out of all the ages, there's no age superior to this age of Kali, because attaining God has been made so simple, so easy. We don't have to engage in those very arduous, strenuous, long-winded practices that used to take place in Satyug, Treta Yug, and Dwapar Yug. How simple it is to do loving remembrance of the divine names and the leelas of God. What could be simpler? What sadhana could be more simple than this? So it only entails the chanting along with the remembrance, loving remembrance of the form. Hari Naam, the divine name, and Hari Dhyan, the remembrance, smaran, chintan of the form of God, with one desire only, to receive their eternal seva, to receive their divine darshan. Because our sadhya means our ultimate goal, our ultimate spiritual goal is not the divine vision of God. It goes beyond that. So when we receive the divine vision of God, then at the time, God will ask for a boon. So what are we going to ask for? The highest attainable goal for any spiritual aspirant is Nitya Seva. As Shri Maharaji has revealed, he has a kirtan, Nitya Seva Mangu Shama Sham Teri Na Bhukti Nahi Mukti Mangu Main Nitya Seva Mangu Shama Sham Teri. So Nitya Seva, the eternal servitude of Sri Radha Krishna for all eternity, forever. This is the highest attainable goal. So that is what we can realize, we can attain simply through the remembrance of the divine names and the Leelas of God. Last night I left you with a question. Despite the chanting of the divine names of God that we have done over the course of uncountable past lifetimes, we have not yet even tasted even a drop of that bliss which is imbued within the divine name of God. What is the reason for that? So Mahaprabhuji in the Shikshashtak, in one of the verses, he tells us, Naam Namakari Bahudha Nij Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamitah Smaranena Kalah Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Drishyamiha Janinanuragah. Shri Maharaji has translated this verse of Mahaprabhuji. Naam mein hai sarva shakti Govind Radhe Durdaiva Vasha Vishwasana Bata de Durdaiva Arthayah Govind Radhe Naam Aparadha Naam Phal Ko Nasade. So Mahaprabhuji, in the words of a devotee, is saying that, oh, Shri Krishna, your name is so great, it is so powerful, it is so potent, it is imbued with all your divine powers, your divine grace, your divine love. You even reside in your very name. But it is my misfortune, it is my ill luck that I don't feel that rus. I don't experience that rus, that affinity when I chant your divine name, O Shri Krishna. So Mahaprabhuji in this verse is referring to Durdaiva. Durdaiva means ill luck, misfortune. And Durdaiva refers to the obstruction caused by spiritual transgressions by the individual soul in previous lifetimes and even in this lifetime. So these spiritual transgressions have caused a blockage which inhibit the flow of God's love into the heart of a devotee. Just like the main line carrying electricity to one's house, if it is cut off, the power is withheld, regardless of all the wiring in the house. In the same way, the channel between the heart of the devotee and God is shut off because of spiritual transgressions. And even though the name is all powerful, all blissful, but the blissfulness of the divine name of God does not dawn in the heart of the devotee because of spiritual transgressions. So this is the reason that we don't experience that rus, that affinity. And when we chant the divine names of God, how do we chant it? Just like we chant or utter anyone's name in the world, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. When God, He's always watching us, witnessing everything we do. Saints know us. They smile upon us. They smile at our ignorance. They smile at our naiveness. That we just utter, we just vocally chant without any feeling in our heart whatsoever. They ask us, when you chant the divine name of God, do you remember God, whose name you're chanting? Just like a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Sri Krishna Janmashtami. Oh, today is Sri Krishna Janmashtami. On this very day, Sri Krishna, Supreme Brahma, Purnatam Purushottam Brahma Sri Krishna, He descended on this very earth. And we're chanting His divine name. So, do we remember Sri Krishna? Perhaps not. Oh, today is Ram Navami. On this very day, Raghavendra Sarkar, Maryada Purushottam, Bhagwan Sri Ram, He descended on this earth. We're chanting His divine name. So we simply chant without adding that loving remembrance. Saint Kabir Das Ji, he tells us how we should remember the divine name. And he tells us, Sumiran ki sudhiyo karo, Sumiran ki sudhiyo karo, Jo surabhi sutamahi, Kaha Kabir charo charata, Bisarat kabahu nahi. So he gives the example of a cow. A cow, when she goes to graze in the morning, प्रातः काल जब वो जाती हैं चारा चरने के लिए, when she goes to graze in the morning, she goes thinking that she will graze and then she will have milk for her calf. With this goal, with this motive, she goes. That cow, she goes. So she's not attached to the grass that she's going to graze on. Her attachment is to her calf, her young, her baby. So Kabir Das Ji tells us that just as that cow is not attached to the grass, she's attached to her calf. In the same way, we as individuals, whatever we have to do in our lifetime, all the duties and responsibilities and obligations and commitments and everything, we have to fulfill. We cannot ignore them, but we have to do them as our duty and not get attached to the outcome. We don't want to get attached to them. Our attachment, the attachment of our mind, should be in God. And just like that cow, when she returns home in the evening, she becomes eager and excited to see her calf, her little baby. And in that excitement, in that thrill, and the anticipation of meeting her baby after being away for the whole day, she makes a sound. It's called Rambhana. वो रंभाती हैं. In Hindi, it is known as Rambhana. And the closest translation that I can think of is the cow makes the bellowing sound. So she gets very excited. So Kabir Das Ji tells us that when we do our sadhana, whatever time we spend in devotion, we should engage our 5 senses, the same senses, our 5 senses of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch, that we engage in the world. We should engage our senses in sadhana. We should make our senses develop a keen desire for the divine vision and the darshan of God. When will that day come? So the feeling in our heart should be, when will that day come when my eyes will feast on the beauty of Sri Radha Krishna? When will that day come when my ears will hear their divine speech, them calling my name? When will that day come when I will hear the melodious, divine, enchanting flute of Sri Krishna? When will that day come when I will be able to intoxicate in the fragrance of the divine body of Sri Krishna? When will that day come when I will receive His divine touch? And when will that day come when I will relish the nectar of His divine love? So with these feelings, we should engage our senses in devotion. That is what Kabir Das Ji tells us. And as regards the rule in Raganuga Bhakti of sadhana and bhakti, Smaratavyah satatam Vishnur vismaratavyo na jatuchit. There are only 2 rules in Raganuga Bhakti as far as devotion is concerned. The first rule is always do remembrance. The second rule is never forget to do remembrance. Only 2 rules. हमेशा उनका स्मरण करो. दूसरा नियम है उनका विस्मरण न होने पाए. केवल 2 नियम है रागानुगा भक्ति में. Only 2 rules. Further, our scriptures tell us tad japas tadartha bhavanam. This is a yoga sutra, and the translation again by Sri Maharaj Ji. जप होया कीर्तन गोविंद राधे रूप ध्यान भी हो योग दर्शन बता दे. So this Yoga Sutra explains that Japa Hoya Kirtan. Some people count the divine name on those japa beads. Or if we are chanting the divine names, whatever may be our desire, either to do jap or kirtan, it is absolutely essential, it is imperative that we do remembrance, Rup Dhyan. And this Rup Dhyan we do every day. We do every day in the world. We practice it every day. So what do? If we remember anyone that we admire, we adore, or even we dislike, what happens when we remember them? Because there are always two feelings, right, in the world. Feelings of love, affinity, affection, animosity, hate, dislike is the other kind of positive, negative. In either one of these situations, what happens? We remember the person. And when we remember the person, their image or their form comes into our mind first. And then we utter their name. So, Shri Maharaji tells us, Jag mein bhi kahu ko Govind Radhe Purva Rupa Dhyana Pache Naam Le Bata De. We do this always in the world as a practice. That's exactly what we need to do in devotion. Pahle bulao Hari Govind Radhe Pache Hari Naam Gun Leela Suna De. That is exactly what we have to do in devotion. Whose name are we about to chant? Oh, the name of Sri Krishna or Sri Radha Krishna. So bring Radha Krishna in front of you. Bring them in front of you. And remember, and then chant their divine name. This is sadhana. This is remembrance. While along with the chanting of the divine name. Yatha pratimam Vishnu buddhya upasate tadvat. Adi Jagat Guru Shankaracharya says that when we go to a mandir, any Hindu temple, you're seated in this beautiful mandir. So when we visit any temple, generally there are different forms of divinity and different shrines in a temple. So when we walk into the temple and then we have darshan of, oh, Sri Radha Krishna. So we have that feeling in our heart, Radha Krishna. Bhagwan Sitaram, Hanumanji, Ganeshji. So we have those feelings, those sentiments. They manifest in our heart. So Adi Jagat Guru Shankaracharya says that when we chant the divine names of God, that is exactly what we should also feel. Sri Radha Krishna. Just as when we have darshan in the mandir. When we chant the divine name, that is exactly what we should do. Before we chant, we bring their form in front of us. Remember them and then chant. This is Kirtan Bhakti. So, further on this topic, I will explain not tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening we're honoring Radhashtami. So I will conclude this topic, the significance of the divine name, on Saturday evening. Radhe Radhe. So now we'll do Aarti.
सुख करता दुख हर